Hello, everybody. Welcome back to OrbitCon. This is the session on the Secular Women Work Conference, and we have all of our dedicated and organized organizers here. Weird as that is. If you have any questions for us, go to the-orbit.net, click on the OrbitCon banner up at the top. That'll take you to the schedule, and then click on the link for our panel. You'll get to a blog post. You can leave questions in the comments there. I'm Stephanie Zvan. I'm one of the co-founders of Secular Women Work. I'm the associate president of Minnesota Atheists and now on the board of Secular Women. Although at the time I was only with Minnesota Atheists, and so we were bringing the organizations together for the first time. And I am going to let my other organizers introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Monette.
Hi, I'm Monette Richards and am currently the president of Secular Woman. I've been involved in the movement since about 2011, 2012. One of my first experiences was Women in Secularism that CFI had just put on. And I went, wow, this is amazing that somebody's actually doing this kind of thing, focusing on women. And so getting involved into Secular Woman and being able to make a conference for activists and it just makes me all happy and squee and is what I'm all about.
All right, Chelsea, you were the next one to come on to Secular Women Work. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Chelsea DuFresne. I did student organizing with Cash at the University of Minnesota in the atheist movement, and that's pretty much how I got involved. And then moved on to Secular Women Work after we did a conference with Cash. And so got some experience there for Secular Women Work. And then for the past probably 2 years, I've kind of just been showing up for a bunch of other movements rather than the atheist movement. And so I can kind of, I don't know, it's a combo between observing and assisting, I would say. Yeah, and that's mostly my experience.
And Mandisa, you just joined us very recently as an organizer, but you were also involved in that first Secular Women Work Conference.
I was, and for those of you who missed the first panel, I'm Mandisa Thomas, the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated, based out of Atlanta. And actually, I remember when Secular Woman was first founded back in 2012. And I actually was going to participate in a calendar project that unfortunately never came to fruition. But the concept behind the project was to feature activists and prominent atheists in the movement who had different body types. So it was about sexuality, body positivity, and such. And so that was exciting to shoot at first. That was an exciting shoot. But I was involved in the Secular Women Work Conference in 2015 after Black Nonbelievers had organized our blackout rally in New York City, and Secular Women did put an ad in there. And we had also just done quite a few, spoke at different conferences, tabled at SSA, American Atheists, and we did our own events. So I was excited when I was asked to participate in Secular Women Work because it was more activist-based and organizer-based because a lot of women are doing the work, myself included. So ironically, I had never been to Women in Secularism, but I was glad to participate with Secular Women Work because of its focus and the work that we had done in the collaborations and getting to know everyone that was involved previously. So that was great. I was tapped to do the morning, one of the morning opening sessions.
What do we call that? Morning warm-ups?
Morning jumpstart?
It's the morning
I have. So I can
yeah,
look it up.
when I saw that, I was like, wow, do they know what they're getting into when they asked me to do this?
Yeah, the morning jumpstart.
Yes, morning jumpstart. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and it was great participating with the other attendees and organizers. So I'm happy to be an organizer for this one now.
Excellent. So for those who haven't already caught on, Secular Women Work is a conference for activists, by activists. Our main front concern is getting everybody trained up and getting the skills that you need to do the things you want to do to change the world. We also have all of our presenters, from speakers to panelists to workshop presenters, are women or genderqueer, because these are voices that, these are people doing a lot of work in the movement, but they are not the people generally being put on stage, and we wanted to do some work to change that. Monette, you were the other person at Skepticon when we sat down and kind of hatched this plan. You want to talk about how it started?
Oh, you're gonna make me go back. Well, we were doing some workshops at Skepticon, weren't we? That year?
I don't think we even started the workshops until
we started the
afterwards.
workshop.
Yeah, workshops are after.
This is one of those, you stick the two of us in the same room and things.
Right. And yeah. And, you know, I am all about, to me, if Stephanie would let me have my way, we would have a conference of nothing but workshops. Because, I mean, they just, the amount of stuff that you can take with you when you do it. So having a conversation about, you know, how we can get these people to come together to be able to spread their skills. When I started organizing, the very first thing I did was set up a lobby day for our local CFI. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I did it really poorly. I mean, it happened, and, you know, it was successful, but there were a lot of things I missed. So talking to Stephanie about a lot of the people who, they see a problem and they go, nobody's working on that, I should do that. And they don't know what they're doing. And this is no fault on people. I mean, you're just not, you know, born with the innate knowledge of how to be an activist. And so they stumble and learn as they're trying to do this. And it's not as effective and efficient as it could be. So yeah, talking to her, you know, somebody ought to do a thing. We should maybe do a thing. And yeah, Secular Woman Work was hatched. And it's, yeah, made me very proud to be a part of it, to see the first one and how many people that were able to take away more, to go back out into their chapters, back out into their local communities, and put these skills to work and make for a better movement. Is that kind of about what happened?
And Chelsea, we came home and roped you in. Anything you want to say about the early days? I mean, we were rushing hard because we went from coming up with the idea at Skepticon to putting out a Kickstarter 3 months later. Yeah,
it was quite a race. All I remember is that you convinced me with very good Ethiopian food.
Right, I did.
Which I guess is the way to do it. And really the goal for me was, there's this issue with local groups where they really like talking about the problem, and they can all even agree on things that should be done about the problem, and that they all care about the problem, and they all have time to do things about the problem, but nobody will ever do anything about the problem. And so this was really a conference where you could show up and actually would be expected to do work about the problem.
All right. And then we brought in Mandisa, and I'm sorry, I'm typing a note to Monette at the same time, and so I'm going to mispronounce names.
We are one. We are Mandisa.
That will make emailing easier if you guys just share one. All right. So we brought you in pretty early, Mandisa, and we did it because you had already at that point been running Black non-believers for how long at the beginning of 2015?
About 4 years at the time. And it was really starting to pick up steam. And actually, it was weird because I wouldn't say it came kind of quickly, but it kind of did. I remember when we started in 2011, in 2012, it was right at the time that there was a billboard campaign with African Americans for Humanism. And so we participated in that. I remember starting to go to almost every event that we could within the community, because we knew that visibility was important. And like I said earlier, that whatever I was asked to do, I rarely say no to it, which was good for, I remember when I met Monette in 2013 at the Great Lakes Atheist Conference in Toledo. And so me and Bridget were there, and, we had just been able to solidify some relationships there and working relationships. And so I am fortunate that, at the time, there were just some other speakers who were either dropping off and other organizers who were dropping off. And so that just led the way for me to be able to, speak and participate the way I did. And so I am appreciative of what that has allowed me to do. And so, and what people don't realize about organizing, or, for what we do, for people who know me, they know I'm a workhorse. It's like for many of us, we take we pack 48 hours into a 24-hour day. And that was no different. At the time, I was still working my full-time job as an event services manager. So it actually wasn't as difficult for me because it was already in my field. But I understand that for some others, they may not have the skill set or the know-how. And so it would be good, if for those of us who, are better organized. I hope I'm not getting off topic here, but I think that the work that I've been able to do with Black nonbelievers, especially since we are so event-based, as well as the job that I was working, just was so hand in hand. And again, I've said before that, the organizing is often the part that is overlooked within this community. And so I'm very, very happy to, to see what part I can play more sufficiently in making this conference work as well as it has been. But whatever I can contribute to it and help put together, I'm excited about it.
We are too. That was a great thing when we were like, would Mandisa maybe want to join us in organizing? Do you think? Yeah. Well, and you also, you ended up with some of the earliest resistance to this conference. We had the trolls around the Kickstarter, but I remember you've seen it, everything you've done, because it has the word Black in the name of your organization. Mm-hmm. You get it too. Mm-hmm. And this has the name women, or the word women in the name. So, but I will never forget there being just some random troll reaching out to you on Twitter to be like, are they still putting on a conference? We haven't heard anything since they raised the money, months before it even happened.
Wow. That is ridiculous. It's that's how I try not to put too much stock in what people on the internet say. I'll look at it, I'll kind of laugh, and if it warrants a response at some point, I will. But then, after a while, I'm like, go away. But, it's just so interesting because it was probably a dude who said that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely a dude who said it. And, it's unfortunate. They probably don't even go to the other conferences either. No. So, yeah.
Yep.
But they require them to be gay.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Right.
So Monette, you want to, and I understand if you don't, or if you want to talk in generalities, but you want to talk at all about the work trying to just get the word out about this new conference? And the fact that we were doing this weird thing with Kickstarter that nobody had ever done before?
Actually, before I talk about that, can I just bounce back really quickly to something that Mandisa had said a minute ago about how the organizers don't get recognized in this movement. And I want to point that out, that anytime somebody happens to fall in the movement, there's a rush for everybody to point out who should replace that person. And it's always another speaker, podcaster, YouTuber, and organizers are like, who? So yeah, it's definitely missed over. So I'm sorry. Repeat your question again, Stephanie. We'll go from there.
Did you want to talk a little bit about the difficulty we actually had getting the word out about this conference, despite the fact that we were breaking ground?
Actually, and that kind of goes with a lot of what I just said, interestingly enough, because one of the most effective way of getting the word out is to get people who already have platforms to talk about it with you. So when you've been people in the movement who have been pushing back, it gets very difficult then for them to want to talk about your conference to other people, to put it on their blogs, to interview you on their shows. So yeah, it's a very gatekeeping sort of thing, and I think we had a lot more success this year with that than initially. We've built some bridges and made, there's a different, I think, what I want to say, sect, just a different section of podcasters and stuff now that are a little bit more well known and who are willing to take on issues like this then and help out. So this year was a lot easier, but last time it was challenging in some places just to get people to respond to you, to even talk, to respond to your email when you're asking, hey, we've got this cool thing that we're going on and we'd like you to help.
Or places that put up every piece of content they can find about atheism that won't print your simple press release.
Right, right. Yeah, even anti-abortion missives will go up there, but not your Kickstarter. Yeah, it gets tough. Gatekeepers.
So Chelsea, I had you talk a little bit about speaker selection last night. On the So You Want to Run a Conference.
Mm-hmm.
You did a really solid job for the first Secular Women Work of keeping us on topic with picking speakers. You want to talk about that process a little bit, even if maybe you repeat yourself a touch from last night?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with the stuff that is a little bit of a repeat to sort of get into it, which is, I think booking great speakers sometimes can be a little bit about risking something on somebody that people might not know as well, because when you're a smaller conference, booking smaller names, or at least people who aren't going to charge $20,000, is kind of the thing that you need to do. And so keeping a document is the way I do it. And with basically everything that I read online, if I like it or if I think it has a unique perspective, I'll add that name to the document along with just a bunch of identifying information. But a lot of it is figuring out who is doing the work, I guess, and sort of applying like a training mindset with Secular Women Work versus a speaker mindset. And I think that helped us a lot for the first conference, where it was, if I sit this person in a room, are they going to transfer skills to people who are also in that room? Versus, is this somebody I can put on a stage? And so I think that led to a lot of good decisions.
I think so. So let's talk about that actual first conference. I honestly barely remember it because I just kind of ramp up and go into to get things done mode and worry about it later. But what were some of your favorite things that just happened at the conference. Actually, I will tell mine. I told the story recently, so it's kind of fresh. And it has nothing to do with what we put on stage, but just the group of people that we managed to get together. There was one point on, I think, the Saturday of the conference where I walked out of the auditorium during a break, and Jennifer Bean of CFI Michigan came over to me and said, okay, so we have a toilet in the bathroom. It is overflowing. I got somebody to find some paper and some tape, and so we've put up a sign. I sent somebody to go find facilities, and so this is all just taken care of. I just wanted you to know. And that was the group we pulled together.
That was a thing of beauty.
It was.
Mine was just watching the conversation flow. We had scheduled a lot of social time and a lot of, just downtime, and watching people in the conversation go out to the lunchroom and then go outside. And it continued. It wasn't just okay, now the next thing started, so we have to stop and change our brains and drop the conversation and all the thoughts that went with that. So it was a more of a generality than it was a specific event, but that there's a certain feeling that goes with that I don't have a word for, but it's pretty awesome.
Chelsea or Mandisa?
Mandisa, you can go.
Oh, thank you. So I too like the general overall theme of the conference, and I always enjoy engaging and meeting new people, as well as seeing the people I know and love. It's always fun to, I got a chance to talk to Debbie Goddard and I actually don't get to talk nearly enough as we should, but we did get a chance to talk. And after some things that had transpired earlier that year, there was a need for us to talk more. And so we got a chance to do that. We got a chance to catch up. But one thing in particular that I did like was when I gave my thumb drive for the morning jumpstart to the audiovisual technician. He said, "Wow." He was like, "I love your taste in music. I haven't seen a lot of this stuff in years." And so I get, he was a DJ, and and then we just started talking music for like a good few minutes. And that was a lot of fun because I am such a music junkie. And I like to incorporate that into my activism. I like to incorporate that in everything I do. I have to incorporate it into my talks. And I think it makes, I think it's helpful in making things relatable to people. And that I am not just one of these people that you just see on a stage or you see on the internet, and I'm just larger than life and I'm not a human being. And so that was fun to me, to be able to talk that, to have that sort of conversation. And it was fun to see everyone wobbling on stage. That was a lot of fun, to get everyone up and dancing and jumping. That was just cool. So, it was that was really, really fun for me. Just seeing the laid back vibe, being able to. I don't like stuffy environments. I don't like where people will, if you aren't engaging each other, whether you're on stage or not, you're not really communicating. And so I really, really enjoyed that. It was good to overall, it was great. The vibe was just everything.
Yeah, and I think everybody who came out of that, I mean, it's morning, everybody's feeling sluggish, and we were about to throw them into a bunch of workshops, but you actually made them move, and you made them move to music, so I actually had to think some. Yeah, that was, the morning jump starts were awesome. Although I think Lauren never wants to follow you doing one of those again. So, all right, how about you, Chelsea?
I think I have to choose between a couple of things, because I think the most important one was I saw, especially even Saturday night going into Sunday, people getting together and making plans for future projects that wouldn't have happened if they weren't at Secular Women Work. I think that was probably the biggest plus for me, was watching people actually do work and get things done at the conference and then move forward on on really, really cool ideas. Yeah.
If I may, do I have time to add one more thing, Stephanie?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We're selling the
So,
next one, so telling everybody what was great about the last one is perfect.
So after my talk on Sunday, when I talked about, Black nonbelievers as an organization, the challenges that Black atheists face, there was one young lady who came up to me afterwards, and she just said, thank you, because I know what it's like. She feels that isolation from her family. She knows what it's like to feel that isolation from the community. And she just said, thank you for being here. And we never fail to encounter someone at a conference or an event who says that, and to just give her a hug to say, you know what, I understand, and we're here, is one of the most gratifying things that I could ever encounter in this community, because we see it. We know that there's a reason why we have to do this work, and there's a reason why we have to exist, and why there's a need for women to represent. Black nonbelievers is primarily represented by women in the leadership now, and that's not by accident, and that's the way it needs to be. But I think that was another important part that that was memorable for me.
I am pretty sure I know who you're talking about. She's still involved with the local atheist community here and the local Black nonbelievers group, which came out specifically because you were there. So,
Aww.
Yeah.
Yay.
Anybody want to add any other highlights before we move on? I love talking about highlights.
Yeah. Desiree Schell's session was probably one of my favorites.
Desiree's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's that, kind of hardcore community organizer. We were supposed to get her for Skeptech 2, but couldn't, because she couldn't leave Canada because her union was organizing, and it was the first time that they had organized basically in their history. So it was a huge, huge deal. But when we were able to get her for Secular Women Work, I definitely jumped up and down a little bit. And I think she did a training session that was it was project design kind of 101, but in a way where she made you work with a bunch of other people to really create something in front of you. And I think it was a good culminating moment of what Secular Women Work could be in one session.
Yeah, one of the other highlights for me actually involved a panel Monette and I were both on. I was moderating a panel on lobbying, which Monette had done several by then, so she knew a little bit more about it. But we also had local politicians on there, people who were not atheists, although the strong believers in secularism. One of them, I admit, was my mother, who spent several years as a small town mayor and on the council. And the other was, at that point, State Representative Phyllis Kahn, who, we've worked with in the legislature forever, but do you know how many atheist conventions really want to have local politicians who are not afraid to peer with atheists?
Right.
But we did it just by saying we want to talk about how to get this done and how to get heard in front of Congress. And so she showed up and she was happy about it, and went on to keep working with us on legislation.
And that's truly a perspective that we don't normally get when talking about lobbying, is the other half of, okay, this is what happens when you guys come to my office then, and what I want to hear and what I want to see. We so rarely get that. So that was pretty cool.
All right. Let's talk a little bit briefly about, we mentioned it before, doing the workshops at Skepticon. This is something that we've been doing every Skepticon since the first Secular Women Work. And Monette, I'm going to put you on the spot to talk about this one.
Oh, that's fine. I love workshops. I do. I just, you know, having.
I know you just bounced.
I know. Sorry. So I think one of the first ones we did together was the Ally workshop, wasn't it, with Valerie? And that was a new experience for me because she had been doing that workshop for so long. And so being able to do it with her and just see how, you know, she works with the group was pretty amazing. But yeah, we do a panel. We get a track every year. We get all women and genderqueer presenters of items and topics and that women are doing and are interested in. I'm trying to think of some of the ones that we've had in the past. Of course, we had the Ally workshop. We've had imposter syndrome a number of times, which is amazing how many people show up to that one.
Yes.
And how welcome it is. And I have watched Skepticon's love for workshops grow because they keep having more every year. So that makes me happy. And a lot of that, since we have no budget for that gets really challenging because we have to find women who are already going to be there, you know, or who are planning to coming anyway, or who can work with their own local group to send them to do them. So that's a gets to be a really big challenge doing that on pretty much no budget. But I think we've been pretty successful. It's been a wonderful experience, and you know, I'm already planning next year. So,
Chelsea, did we make you do a workshop one year?
I did. It was like a basic event planning and direction kind of workshop. As in, are you running something, and why should you be, or why shouldn't you be, basically.
Excellent. And Mandisa, you did something we have never had somebody do for the workshops last year. You did a talk, and before that you did a workshop at Skepticon. You did a talk, and before that you did a workshop that kind of tied in. Can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Yes, I did a workshop called Creating Welcoming Spaces, and how to create welcoming spaces, what is needed, what you can do, especially as an organizer. Some things that people should keep in mind, and they're very practical in nature. You know, the one thing I think people think that organizing and activism is this big specific thing where you have to always be out front, or that you absolutely must be trained before you get started. And you really don't. A lot of I think people miss that there are a lot of practical skills that we utilize already that come into activism and getting involved. It's utilizing the skills you already have and perfecting them, and also educating and helping those who may not have those skills, and they have to be open to it. I think that this community tends to, you know, we pride ourselves on our intellectual capability, you know, how smart we are, you know, the information that we know. But those practical and social skills, we do suffer a lot from social deficit disorder. And for part of that, for very good, you know, and part of that goes into our interaction and engagement, you know, knowing how to read people in situations, especially if we're providing a support role. So I did give some, and Monette was my unwilling counterpart. She helped me reenact some scenes there, which were great.
totally willing.
And
Totally willing.
you know, yeah. So, and I gave some good examples of, you know, what people can do to make their spaces better and more welcoming, and what they shouldn't do as well. So I think a lot of these basic, well, what I would consider basic, or what we would consider basic, you know, there are still some things that people either don't know or they need to improve upon. And so I was very happy to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, we're trying to get new activists in all the time. So anytime that we can help them ramp up their skills quickly is a good time. So let's talk about the fact that we're running another conference. I'm going to ask Monette that you talk about how we started doing that again. And this is slightly related. We do have a question on the blog page. Gretchen wants to know what your shirt says.
It says "Stop booking rapists." It's very on point. So yeah.
Yeah.
Got that at a NARAL event. So let's see. I think it was September of last year, because it was between our birthdays, that you came to visit, and we were sitting out on my deck working. Actually, well, I guess we kind of started planning it before that. We really made the decision, though, I think, when you came, and we just decided that it was time. We had it in both of us were, up to the task again, because boy, was that draining. And we spent a weekend while you were here visiting on our computers, making all the plans, 'cause that's how our friendship works. And just started detailing, when we were going to have it, what kind of things we were looking forward to again. And yeah, and of course, in the way that we work, once we started on something, we just ran with it, and here we are. Because it's none of that, hey, maybe we should do this. Yeah, nah, I don't want to do that, or I'm too bored, or whatever. I don't know. But so.
Yeah, and
yeah.
I will draw the connection to the shirt. At the time that I was there, the BuzzFeed article about Lawrence Krauss was in its relatively early stages. So, yeah, so we were, I was at least getting some opportunities to put people in touch with the reporters who wanted to. And so we knew that something was going to be coming out. And we knew that we were going to be facing another big blow up of how are people going to react to this. And honestly, the more that we can do to remind this movement how much of the work is done by women and by genderqueer people, we're not just including them because they're not included anywhere else. We have a rather large number of people who are genderqueer, whether they're out about it or not, who are getting things done. But the more that we can put their expertise and just how badly we need them out front, the better off we're going to be.
Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, anytime we try to do an event, we're going to be facing a backlash. That's just kind of how it is. So we might as well do it when there's another big backlash coming and get it all over at once. Oh, Krauss is about to be outed. Well, hey, why don't we just, do another conference as well, so we can maybe push it all towards him instead of us.
Although I do have to admit, I did not expect to spend the month of the Kickstarter talking about him.
No, the timing was interesting, because we knew about that the reporters had started contacting people, like you mentioned, it was September already, and it didn't make it until, was it early March? Did it finally hit?
I think it was in February. But
February.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, we had no idea that was when it was going to actually finally come out. So, yeah.
Yeah. And as much as it made people want to talk to us, I do have to admit a certain amount of, let's just go with bitterness, resentment, really.
Yeah, that works too.
He can steal that spotlight so quickly just by being a terrible human being.
Yep.
All right, but the positives.
We're putting on a conference. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mandisa, you're coming back. You're going to talk to us again. And now you're helping organize.
Yes.
And Chelsea, tell folks who our other speakers are. You got to meet one of them for the first time, I think, last weekend, right?
Mm-hmm. That was Jessica.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Who I haven't met before, and I'm very excited to see what she's got to say and do. at our conference. I think there are going to be a lot of fresh faces at this conference, and I'm very, very excited about it. Not that there weren't at the first one as well, but I think that's just going to be kind of how we run.
You also talked to somebody at Secular Social Justice for something that is kind of a pet project of yours that you would like to fit in.
Yes. Well, so we'll see how many of the pet projects make it into this conference, because some of them are easier to work out than others, and because they're pet projects, they tend to be unwieldy. This one, there was a speaker whose name is Tracy Red, I believe, yeah, who does, they organize with Black Lives Matter DC, and they do basically direct action training, which takes probably about 3 or 4 hours. I'm not really sure how we're going to fit it in, but it's definitely been one of those things that I've always wanted at a conference like this, because I think we have a lot of material already in the atheist movement about organizing online, which is great and can be very effective. But I think if you're walking into a conference and that's the only thing that you find, a mistake has been made. And I think direct action training is definitely a good thing to include.
Monette, you want to talk about the CFI training that's not going to be part of the conference, but oh yeah, by the way, I got a room for that.
Oh, okay, cool. Send it to me and we'll start blasting it. Yeah, that's amazing. Center for Inquiry has been working pretty hard to get secular celebrants in the states where they have chapters and people willing to fight. In a lot of states, like in Ohio, the only way you can marry people outside of being like a government official is to be ordained through a church. So they have the Secular Celebrancy Program, which is run by Reba Boyd Wooden. Yes, thank you. Out of Indiana. And she is going to offer training on the Friday before the conference for secular celebrants for CFI. So you can sign up through CFI, and it's an all-day training. And then after you go through the motions and get all your paperwork in order and everything, you can be listed on Center for Inquiry site for their secular celebrants. And you know, they've been successful in Indiana. They were successful in Illinois with, I think that panel is coming later today.
Yes, they're doing a whole panel about it tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. It's a good training and it's a good program, and it's something that the more people we get involved in, and we can get the momentum and get more states to make this effective. And Stephanie, I believe you are fighting for secular celebrants in Minnesota right now.
We are, which is one of the things that makes it particularly timely for a conference in Minnesota. But also just know that if you come to this in Minnesota and you get your secular celebrant thing, you won't be able to use it on a legal basis right away. You'll be well trained. You can do ceremonies. They just won't be recognized by the state. But we're working on that part.
But if you come from Indiana and you get the training, or any of the other states that have it, I think DC has it. There are quite a few. So then you would be, I believe. I mean, you probably still have to go through your states, but at least you have the training.
So, Mandisa, we've mentioned a couple of times now that Black Nonbelievers has come on for an organizing sponsor for this. What kind of goals, if any, that we haven't already talked about, does Black Nonbelievers have for this conference?
Well, one of our goals is always to show that there are activists of color, particularly Black activists and attendees that are out there. I want our members and people to understand the good things that are happening within the secular community. It isn't just all about, you know, the ones who are just screaming about church and state separation. That there are a lot of good things that are coming, you know, that are going on with trainings like this. And for people to know that if they want to get involved with whatever it is that is a passion to them, they are able to get that support and that training from fellow atheists and fellow secularists. That is always a goal of ours, is for visibility and advocacy. And so hopefully, and in doing it effectively. I'm of the strong opinion that, tact is everything. It doesn't always mean nice. It doesn't always mean that, you are yelling and screaming at someone, but being tactful is important to me. And again, that means that you are being effective. And so from there, that is, and I took the Humanist Celebrant training with the American Humanist Association last year with the Humanist Institute. So that is something that I know will be of importance to me as well, because I need to know what the laws are in the state of Georgia. So I really do want more folks of color, more Black atheists, that in addition to the other, the other issues that we want people to care about. Because I'm pretty sure I was on spring break, so I couldn't attend secular social justice, but that it is a reciprocal and symbiotic relationship and connection here, that there should be some practical knowledge and also good knowledge for if they want to pursue those avenues, they can do that. And there are people in the community that are doing that work, and they need to know who they are.
All right.
Or you all are, to say.
We all are. All of us.
Yes.
Although, if you're already in Black Non-Believers, it's hard to miss you.
Yeah.
So, for folks who are interested in secular women work, this is actually a little bit of an odd time to promote it. We finished up our Kickstarter at the end of March, on March 29th. We just passed our first goal. That first goal is the thing that says there is enough interest for us to hold a conference. So we're doing that. We're doing that at the end of August, weekend of August 24th through the 26th. It will be in Minneapolis at the University of Minnesota campus. There is this great auditorium where in the Humphrey Center for Public Policy, with a perfect atrium outside for everybody to get together and talk and make those connections and make those plans to take over to get things done. We're still working on figuring out how to feed everybody to make it a little easier for people to come, but we do at this point have rather a lot of scholarships. That one of the things we offered through the Kickstarter was people could buy a scholarship and send somebody else. So people have done that. We will be very shortly figuring out what it is that we want to do to get, what it is that we want to ask for handing out those scholarships. Although honestly, chances are good we have a lot of them. We may be able to accommodate everybody who wants to come. We're going to be doing some brainstorming about what we can do to either offer travel grants or find ways to make it much cheaper for people to get here, because we don't want cost to be an option or to be a barrier to getting this kind of training. We will start figuring out who the rest of our speakers will be. Right now, we have Mandisa, we have Jessica Shao, we have Greta Christina, we have Reba. She's sticking around for the conference after the training. We have a ton of good options locally. We have a bunch of people who have already bought their tickets who are like, I want to do this workshop. But we are also at the same time surveying our Kickstarter people who bought tickets to find out what they want to learn. So we make sure we're meeting the needs of the folks who are coming up. So we're going to have a bunch of work ahead of us. We're going to have a bunch of news coming out. We will very shortly figure out what ticket prices need to be going forward for the rest of the conference and get that information out and open up ticket sales again. I hate this part where we have to not let people buy tickets even while we're talking about the conference, but it should be a short delay. We should have that up, I would think, probably in a couple of weeks if everything works out well. Otherwise, I think we are about done talking about this. Monette, you want to direct people to finding more information since the website is your baby?
Sure. Yeah, keep watch on secularwomenwork.org. That's obviously going to have most of the up-to-date information. If you need to ask questions about what's going to happen, you can always email me at monette@secularwoman.org. One's singular, one's plural. Secularwomenwork.org, secularwoman.org. But yeah, keeping an eye on the website is the best idea, and we'll put up the form for scholarships and grants as soon as we can, and we will have links there for how you can buy tickets. If you really, really are interested and need more information now, like I said, shoot us an email. We're happy to talk about it because we could talk about this thing all day long.
We could, but we're not going to. We're going to give everybody a little break before the next session. For those who do want to watch the next session, what you will want to do is go to the-orbit.net. There's a banner ad for OrbitCon at the top of the website. Click on that, the very first pinned post. Actually, that'll take you directly to the schedule. And you will be able to click through to each of the sessions after ours. And thank you, Mandisa, Monette, Chelsea, for joining us, for talking about this, for making this happen, for us keeping all of each other sane as we do all of this work.
Thank you for having us on and for doing all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Steph.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here.